Alright, I'm a bit stressed out because, I was excited for the Destroyer week, right? Like, I had that planned, and it's like, what really could I have done in this situation? Like, when there is a champion that is hijacking my channel and wants to make his presence known, I can't really do anything against that, right? So I just had to let it happen. And, from the messages, it seems that Sandman has been warning us of this day, and it's finally come. And I don't know what he wants to prove, but I can sure tell you that he does want to prove something. And I think I know why. I think it's because we forgot him, right? That's just a fact. We forgot about this champion, and that happens. It happens all the time. There are some champions that people pull, and they're like, wait, this guy's in the game? And Sandman was kind of becoming that, and he wants to just make sure that we remember who he is. So this is Sandman's showcase. This is my channel, but this is not my video. So, but being real for a second, I have always wanted to rank up Sandman. I just love this champion so much. I think he is so underrated, and he is a sand character, so I was just gonna love him automatically. But I wanted to give him something special as a way to introduce him to the channel, because with characters like Sandman, I think he fits the bill really well of like just being a character that has to prove a point, because people have been forgetting about this guy for a long time now, and when you have something to prove, you're gonna do whatever it takes to make your presence known. And for Sandman, it was hijacking my channel for a bit. But yeah, we have this Gauntlet Vision fight, and the Petrify here is really helpful for neutralizing the synthesis, because it just reverses it straight up, and so Sandman just completely counters Vision right there. And yeah, great showcase of his very powerful Petrify. But now we have Gauntlet Corg, and this was a disastrous start. It was not a great start at all, and honestly, when the start was this bad, I was like, do I just give up on this fight? But then I realized, hey, if I give up on this fight, I'm just like everyone else that just gives up on this champion, and I can't do that. So I took the hits to the face. I admit I played this beginning terribly, and I was like, how am I going to solo this fight? I just keep on getting hit. I just cannot do this fight with Sandman. So yeah, here, it's a rough start, but the evades eventually start to cool down a bit. And here I dropped the SB2 in a second, and I should have done it right there, but I didn't. But now I do it. And this is where it actually starts. This is where the fight really begins to begin. And it's because the decelerate just stops corg completely. So this was the game plan. Just get the decelerates up, and once they are up, he will never evade again in this fight. Simple as that. And I was right. He will never evade in this fight again, and that's why Sandman is actually a good counter to this fight, and he can actually solo it. Now, of course, the start was bad, but it's not about how you start, really, especially in story content. It's about how you finish. So yeah, here Sandman has the shield shattered. We are in unstable now, so the damage output's going to be pretty good, I hope anyway. So yeah, there we go for the heavy attack, and the burst damage isn't too bad at all right now. It will start to ramp up eventually, but like 43,000 right there on the third heavy attack swing, that is very, very good stuff. But yeah, here he dropped the special attack, so we go back in, drop our own SB2 in a second here. And at this point, with like 50 plus decelerates, he is just never evading once again in this fight. Now here's the cool thing about decelerate. Usually slow works in a way where if you are against a skill champion with a science champion, for example, you cannot slow the skill character, because slow does not work against class disadvantage. However, for decelerate, this has no restrictions, so Decelerate can actually work against skill characters, hence why Sandman is taking this Gauntlet Corg very, very well. And yeah, like I said, this is just going perfectly now. It was a rough start, like I mentioned, but now that the fight's under control, this is just perfect for Sandman. So here I go for the SP3, And yeah, the damage output is going to be pretty nice after this, I believe. I hope so anyway. But yeah, here we drop it. Beautiful animation, obviously, like sand characters, they just don't miss. And look at this damage output now. It is pretty good. Like, this last hit is going to do over 75,000 damage. That was 77,000 damage right there. Just like that. Really, really good stuff from Sandman. And it's because of a lot of things, right? The debuff count, the recoil masteries, and before Sandman was buffed, the recoil masteries actually didn't really help Sandman because he scaled off a base attack only. But with the buff, he now scales with any type of attack rating, which is why the recoil masteries are so good for him. And there is a gauntlet corg solo coming back from like what seemed to be certain defeat and just soloing that fight. That is just a really, really big feat of strength. But now we have this Black Panther fight here. This also is a good showcase of his accelerate because this is an unstoppable and like evade heavy Black Panther Civil War. Now, most science characters with slow cannot take this fight because, like I said, slow cannot work against skill champions if you are a science champion. However, for Sandman, the decelerate still works perfectly fine because decelerate is just that good. So yeah, I think that it's such a good ability to have, and I think that Sandman's kit, when it comes to utility, is just so good as well. Because yeah, you have Decelerate, you have Petrify, you have immunity to 3 very important debuffs. You also have just like a ton of debuffs at base. It's a really good kit, and it makes him like, you know, a really versatile science champion. And of course he does lack some things, I will admit. For example, his ramp up does take a bit of time to like get going, but once he does get going, he's a very consistent DPS. But I think his utility more than makes up for it. Is he going to be like a Battlegrounds MVP? Some metas, honestly, he could be because of his Petrify, but like for the most part, he usually won't be, right? But that's okay because everywhere else, he is just fantastic. Like in Alliance War, having 3 immunities is just massive. Having like the ability to petrify so easily can also be very massive for like the healing nodes in Alliance War. So yeah, he just has use everywhere. And while people are trying to forget him, I'm just trying to see the potential of this character, and I see so much potential for him. So I am honestly fully on board with this champion. But yeah, this fight is over essentially. Just drop the heavy attack one more time, and a beautiful crit there, to be honest. And now we have this gore fight. So you saw the power gain reversal in the first fight, but now this is the regen reversal, and this one is really fun. So Sandman's Petrify at base, it is, I believe, let's see, what's the potency? I think it's 8%, so that is 80% per SP1. Now with Despair, the first SP1 just blocks out all the healing, and then anything else is bonus. Now that is really good, obviously. So if you like stack up 2 SP1s just back to back, you're already going to do a lot of reversing. So yeah, as this gore fight continues, it just gets crazier and crazier, to be honest, because Gore, as his health gets lower, his regen just gets stronger. So as this fight like gets going, Sandman is just going to crush him even faster. So yeah, like the game plan here is to just play it slow for a bit, but once his health starts to go down, just be as aggressive as possible with the SP1s and watch the Petrifies just do so much work. But yeah, here we go in, here we drop the SP1 right now, and the reversal is looking pretty good. Like we're doing about 500 like as negative net healing. It's pretty good stuff so far, but then we go back and drop another SP1, and now things are stacking up big time here. Now it's over 1,000 damage, which is really nice. So here he just keeps on dropping the SP1, which pauses our debuffs, which is massive for us. So we go back in now, get a combo going into the relic, I believe. Or no, we just go for the SP1 right here. And yeah, the reversal is now massive. It is approaching 2,000. And yeah, he is completely melting at this point. And this matchup is basically over now. So there we go. Very fun fight, and like I said, once it gets going, he really starts to melt Gore. So now we have Battlegrounds here, and like I said, this is not really his ideal place. Like, sometimes it is depending on the meta, but like in this meta, for example, just not super ideal. And hey, that's okay. Sometimes he'll work very well, sometimes he won't work at all per se. So it's like, yeah, Sandman, when it comes to Battlegrounds, he can work, obviously. Like, he does fine for these matchups, for example. Like, he is a good character when it comes to countering Mystic champions. But yeah, here we go for the SP2, and the damage output, like, after the first cycle is not too shabby at all. So here we go for the combos, or like the heavy strings, and it ends up being like about, what, 48,000 at the end of it. Very, very good damage right there. And we just have to cycle back, and then once we do that, it'll be game over. So it's not too bad. It just takes, like, you know, a bit of time to get that second cycle going. So yeah, here we drop it again, and this should do it. Just like one more heavy attack cycle. But he drops the SP2. Not ideal, obviously, but yeah, it's fine here because the matchup is now over. And that was like, what, 65 seconds, so not too shabby. Now we have this Mordo here. This one's a bit better, and like I said, it is meta dependent to see like how relevant he is in a Battlegrounds meta. And with this armor up meta, he's not gonna be like super flashy, obviously, because with like the armor ups and everything, it's just pretty annoying to get like basic attack damage going, and his basic attack damage is pretty decent sometimes, especially with like the Fury buff or like the Fury passive up. So yeah, here we go for a heavy attack. Just build those up real quick. And yeah, now it's time for the SP2 in a second. So here we're about to drop it and time it perfectly with the power gain. So there we go. And the damage output here, not too shabby at all. And now we drop the heavy attacks, and this is where the real damage starts. And it goes up to like, I believe 48,000. So yeah, there we go, man. It's pretty nice damage, but it's just like ramping back up to it, which is a bit annoying sometimes. So yeah, here he just does not play ball, which is whatever. And yeah, here we dropped the SP2, and it was still under a minute, so not too shabby in the slightest. And yeah, rank 2 Mordo versus Ascended Sandman, or I guess vice versa, but yeah. Now we have this Loki fight, and this is a good showing of what really changed with buffed Sandman. So previously, before the buff, like I said, Sandman scaled only with base attack. So that was obviously annoying, right? Because recall masteries, any note that enhanced your damage output, Sandman just didn't care. He just wasn't affected by it. And in my opinion, that just crushed the character on release. Like, he had no chance of being anything at that point. But with the buff, him scaling with like these nodes and everything, it makes him a really, really strong quester. And I think that Sandman was born to be a questing champion, an Alliance War champion. Just like in that regard, like, he wasn't made for Battlegrounds per se, but he was made for like pretty much anything else, and he does really good in those roles, especially now that he has like this massive damage bump in story quest and like in Alliance War even. So that's why I think the buff was really good. It makes him like competitive in Alliance War, especially. Like, that is massive for him, because like I said, you boost up really high in Alliance War, so being able to actually like benefit from the boost, it really does help Sandman a ton. And that's why I think he's going to be such a good attacker from like now till forever, to be honest. But yeah, here we have this Mojo fight. Nothing too crazy. Here we're just gonna go for the SP2 in a second, and hopefully like the damage output with the nodes and everything is just really, really good. And I think it is going to be really good. So let's see right here. A nice 17,000 crit there, 56,000, 87,000, and then over 100,000. So like, this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly why I love this buff, because it makes him really good in the places where he was supposed to be really good. So now we have the Sorcerer Supreme, and it's the same thing. Like, with the buff now giving him like, you know, the ability to benefit from nodes and everything, it is such a good change for this character. And of course, this buff is still like, it's pretty old now, but I can still appreciate how this champion was changed for the better. But yeah, here she drops the SP2, no big deal. Here I drop my own SP2, and this SP2 is gonna have a lot of damage to go along with it after she drops the SP1, which is whatever. But yeah, check this out. We're gonna go for the heavy attack, and yeah, 50,000, then like what, 85,000, and then 140,000 damage right there. It's a thing of beauty, really. But this was the introduction of SANDMAN, and I think that this character has a lot of promise. I think that he has a ton of potential, and I wanted to make sure that his presence was known, so this was the only way, right? And yeah, I'm excited for this champion's future. Of course, I cannot showcase him over the weekend because other plans, other events, obviously, but just remember his name, remember who he is, remember who the SANDMAN is. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on the SANDMAN, and yeah, that's about it for me.